Wolf attacks are on the rise in Northern California, and ranchers are losing livestock. And on top of that, they're very worried about wolf sightings in their communities where kids play and go to school. At the same time, ranchers cannot touch these wolves because they're listed as endangered species, and you could go to jail for a year and pay 100,000 plus fines. On the other side of this issue, proponents of wolves argue that it's good to have wolves back because they provide a lot of value for ecological balance. They also have a cultural and symbolic value for California. Today, we sit down with some of these ranchers that are facing this issue daily. We also talked to the sheriff of Sierra County who's been observing what's happening with the ranchers.
For the last 3 months, this has consumed my life. I do nothing but go to wolf kills every day, chase wolves all night to try to keep them from killing somebody else's animals the next day. It is all we do.
And this is the biggest threat I've ever seen in my life, in my community, and it's a threat through all of Northern California. We're not alone. This has been going on in small communities throughout California. We've tried to work with the right people, both federal and state. We're waiting for one last chance for them to do the right thing, or we're going to have to take it into our own hands. And we're willing to do that because we're going to lose every freedom we have.
We have no choice.
We have no choice. It's a fight we don't want, but we can't give up anymore. Ranchers and farmers in our communities, we're not against the wolf, but what most people don't realize is there's good wolves and bad wolves, just like people. And when you get the bad wolves, you have to correct them one way or another.
I'm Siama Korami. Welcome to California Insider. Rick, Paul, it's great to have you. Welcome.
Thank you
for having us.
Glad to be here.
You're coming from Sierra Valley and your area in Northern California, and not just your area, a lot of areas in Northern California is facing a problem with wolves. And in your area, it's getting a lot worse.
In April, we started having wolf conflicts, and I'm a county supervisor for the county of Sierra. My counterpart for the county of Plumas, we have a big valley there, and it's split right in half. So we have two counties representing the agriculture industry there. We have a large influx of cattle in the spring. They summer there for summer pastures, and they go back down to the Central Valley for the winter. As the cows started influxing the valley, the wolf impacts started increasing. And since May 22nd, I think, we've had almost 70 kills, depredations from wolves in the livestock that have been completely verified by the USDA Wildlife Services. And it's escalated to the point where I'm experiencing a loss every day, at least 1 to 2 to 3. And some day, we had, day before yesterday, we actually had a day where, 2 days ago, we had a day without a kill. That's one of the very few days in the past months that we haven't had at least one depredation every day.
And in your ranch, right?
And on my brother's ranch, I manage and operate my brother's ranch, and we've had approximately 40, I don't even know how many, honestly. I can't, without going and sitting down and assessing every individual investigation, I don't even know how many we have. I've lost count. We're fighting this on a daily basis. I left last night. I went to bed at about 2:30, and we successfully kept the wolves outside of the valley until that point. I left at 2:30 and went to bed to come down here. I got up at 5:45 to come down here and see you guys, and in that time frame, we suffered another depredation. There was 5 fish and game units there with 2 people per unit. There were 4 drone flyers with 4 drones in the air, and a couple of other assistants trying to haze these wolves out of the valley. And they're just an incredibly tenacious and intelligent animal, and they succeeded in sneaking through and killed an animal, and then hopefully exited the valley this morning. But I will find out the aftermath when we get out of here, and I can follow up with my guys at home to find out. It's every day it's a new experience. You go through this every day. It's either our cattle or my neighbor's cattle, or somewhere in the valley. About 90% of the producers have been impacted, have had losses. And like I said, as the county supervisor, therefore I represent everybody, so I've been at almost every kill in the valley for the last 3 months because I feel an obligation to make sure the investigations get done correctly and that people are supported in the way they need to be supported.
Rick, what's the impact on your community? You represent the ranchers, right?
There were people that told us this was going to happen. We didn't know it was going to be this bad, but now we're trying to tell other people that there's no reason the wolf will not take the whole state of California, because the wolf now is a changed creature because they're not afraid of man. So they're not afraid to go wherever they want to go. So with being on the endangered species list, right now it gives them free reign of everything. So our community is concerned right now that they're going to be coming into our communities as they did last year, and they'll be taking 4-H animals, dogs, cats, and a lot of people think the wolves are just staying in the hills, and they're not. This is a valley that we live in that's 120,000 acres of open grassland, and they're making their home in the middle of the valley, and they went to the hills to have their pups. But we know the fear we have is that when cattle leave, because they don't stay, most of them are there in the winter, that they're going to have to eat something. And that's just what the wolves do. I think most of us realize that the wolf's just doing what wolves do. They're going to eat to survive. Some of the wolves we have are killing for sport. That's just unacceptable in our book. So I'm trying to warn people that, like people warn me, that they're coming your way. And I think everybody's fine with it being in someone else's backyard. But we want to make sure we can control this before it gets in everybody's backyard and they're going through the problems that we are now. It's not an issue of us not wanting the wolves. The problem with the wolves in our areas and all of Northern California is that due to a lot of regulations, we do not have prey for them to eat in the wild. Our deer population is almost nil in spots. The deer we do have moved into the cities, which is bringing in apex predators like mountain lions almost every week into our small towns. Our small town's 1,000 people, but almost weekly there's a report of watch out for the lion on certain street. And they're there because the deer have moved out into towns for protection from the lions. So it kind of all builds on itself.
How many wolves are there in your community now?
The PIO from the Fish and Wildlife Services committed that there are 13 wolves in the Bioseum pack, and that is the pack that we are having documented issues with. I mean, the 3-collared wolves can be attributed to about 95% of the deaths that we've had in Sierra Valley. They established a den right behind my house, and they come down every night into the valley. They were out in the daytime openly for a long time until we had some, as both counties, we went down and had a meeting with the Secretary of Resources, and he committed to trying to help us. He understood our plight, so he established, between him and the director of the Fish and Wildlife, they came up with this strike force plan, which I think everybody in the state's heard of. It was a $2 million pilot project to come up. So they sent 18 Fish and Wildlife representatives, 9 game wardens, and 9 environmental staff, partnered up 2 and 2, and they've come up and they've started June 9th to help us try to haze the animals out of the valley. They came up with great intentions, very ill-equipped, and the impacts were, we continued to see losses on a daily basis. So as it evolved, we reached out to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and through USDA Wildlife Services, there's a drone task force out of Oregon that a couple years ago was formed when they were having these kind of issues in Oregon. And it was semi-successful up there because they were able to haze the wolves out of the smaller valley where they were impacting the livestock. And I think there was a lot more undulate populations there for them to therefore in turn go and consume deer and elk. And as Rick said, we don't have those kind of resources available here. They came down anyway to help us. They came a week ago. They've become extremely frustrated as well because we've encountered deaths almost every night while they've been there. I know that they've helped mitigate some of the losses we've had, and they've helped us identify some losses that we would have never found had they not been flying around in the middle of the night and found where the wolves had killed them, and we were able to go secure the scene and get an investigation done. Because the callers the technology has been very sporadic lately and very frustrating, and it's not working as designed. So it's pretty much we just have to drive around and hope we bump into them somewhere. And then if they do locate one, Then they rally up and they haze the wolf out of the valley, if at all possible, with several drones taking turns playing loud music and lights and sirens. And so they haze the wolves back out of the valley, back across the road behind my house. And then we start the fight all over again. We've run them out. They turn around and come back. We run them out. I mean, this is all in one night. We run them out 3 times.
In one night?
In one night, yes. Last night we engaged all of them. Were at the road right by my house at 7 o'clock. We ran them all back. The mother took the young adults back to the den, it appeared. The daughter and the father started moving north along the road parallel with us, and we fought all night long. Like I said, it was 2 o'clock this morning when I left, 2:30 in them. And they'd still had them across the road at that point, but at some point one of them slipped through and went down and killed a calf and then exited the valley, or we hope exited the valley. We don't even know that.
Do they come out at night, or are they during the day? Do you see them during the day?
Well, prior to the strike force showing up, they were routinely seen in the daytime. We've had several film crews that filmed them out in the field with our cows in the middle of the day. Due to the ESA policies, we were not even allowed to worry the animals. That's what the law says. We're not allowed to worry the animals. So their behavior was completely unlike any wolf that I've ever seen. They were out in the middle of the daytime, right out in the fields. And then when the strike force showed up, they engaged about 4 days and 4 nights in a row on our place. And then they immediately became a lot more elusive. They quit coming out in the daytime. They started, they're an amazingly intelligent animal. They started watching when shift change was. They would slip through. Well, you have to change things every night and do something different because they're going to be doing something different. For the last week, it's amazing there because you have 6 drones flying around with flashing beacons on them, red and green lights, and it looks like War of the Worlds every night. You got 6 fish and game vehicles driving around with spotlights, shining them all over the place, all these drones flying around to try to keep them out of the valley. And every night they enter the valley, they eat animals, and they leave.
You guys are supposed to get compensated for this, right? How does that work?
I saw in your earlier article that you guys did out of Siskiyou County, you quoted Tina Saitone. She's an economist from UC Davis, and she determined, using the Western United States and the impacts the wolves have caused in the livestock industry, she came up with approximately $162,000 worth of impacts on an annual basis per wolf in your livestock operation. And that is due to the things, the conception rates for your animals, the worrying, the stress, the weight loss. And that is what is so frustrating about the compensation program. The California Cattlemen Association, who Rick is the president of, we spent a couple years negotiating a fair compensation program that has 3 prongs. The first one was deterrence, the second one is pay for presence, and the third was for depredations. So there was 3 prongs to it. When they started out, they were paying for the depredations and the deterrence. We finally got them to start pay for presence because that is what we're actually suffering. That covers the losses that you incur that you don't even know about, the weight losses, the conception rate losses. So immediately, a couple months after they started paying for presence, they ran out of money. The first $3 million pilot project, and so the legislature authorized another $600,000. The department, in its own wisdom, determined that they're only going to pay for depredations now.
Nobody's been paid this year, and we know things run slow in the government as far as payments, but the compensation program was really designed to make people feel better about the wolf being here because they wouldn't feel as bad for the livestock producers if they thought they were getting paid justly for every kill that is documented. And to give a documented kill, that means you have to have a government agent pretty much do an autopsy on that animal. And we have a very good trapper that has worked his whole life, federal trapper. We'll skin the animal and he'll tell you whether the animal was dead before the wolves got it. He'll tell you if it was killed by coyotes, or he'll tell you if it was killed by wolves, by the bite marks and by the blood hemorrhaging in the animal. So we're confident in that. But for every wolf kill they find, there's probably 5 or 6 others that never get detected. We'll never get payment for those. And we'll never get payment for the stress that it's putting on the animals.
It's quite an example of a ranch pick. I've got a $8,000 thermal night vision scope. We've got spotlights. We have all this stuff in a ranch pickup where you'd usually have a bottle of medicine and a rope. I mean, it's insane. And this is the battle we're fighting every night. You know, we're out there like bats. We're out all night, every night, trying to keep these animals away. And so the cows are living that too. You look out there at night with your night vision, you can see immediately where the issues are because the cows are up, they're moving, they're worried. And so you have to go there because your wolves are probably there. And they live in fear all night, every night.
These wolves were not supposed to come to your area, right?
I'm a fifth generation, and there's no story from our grandparents or great grandparents of wolves being in most of Northern California. So it's brand new, and the wolf we have isn't the wolf that they say was here. Those who say it, it's a much bigger, stronger wolf. They're very smart, and they know how to get around us. In any turn we make, they'll get around us. They've chased people up trees, up north. A rancher checking his cows was just walking out. Pretty soon he saw the wolves. He walked out thinking they would run away, but they didn't, and they came toward him. And so he spent a good time in a tree waiting for them to leave. And some might say, well, they weren't aggressive. Well, they probably would have been if he wouldn't have done that. So we've got stories of them walking in people's backyards that have little kids, and families have changed their ways of taking care of their kids because they're fearful of these wolves. And they say they won't attack man, but they have in the past. So, and they will again because they're not afraid of us now.
Yeah, I had a fight with the director about that because, you know, he keeps saying that there were only 2 human-wolf encounters in over 100 years. Well, my argument to that is 100 years ago, there was a lot less wolves and there was a hell of a lot less people. So the interactions are inevitable. I mean, you know, now that we have the volumes and numbers of wolves we're seeing that are in communities with the population base we have, it's nothing like 100 years ago. So it is inevitable that there is going to be a health and safety issue at some point.
We talked about the coyote issue and how the coyote is adapting to suburbs and cities, and the wolf will. There's just not enough of them yet, but last winter they were going through our backyards of people's houses. They killed a deer elk, and we don't have many elk, but on the front porch of a person's house, the poor guy inside didn't know what was going on until he opened the door the next morning and there was blood and
everywhere.
All the remains. So they're not afraid to go around people, and it's only going to get worse.
So the idea was for these wolves to not be around your community, right? They were supposed to be in the mountains.
We asked for them to suspend deer hunting completely in both counties, which are really highly sought after areas to hunt for large trophy mule deer. But, you know, we've watched the deer population dissipate to the point where there's none there. I mean, there just are not any there. So there is no alternative for these wolves. It's not the wolves' fault. They're designed killers, and that is the frustrating part because day in and day out I go to these kills every day, and they're not killing for survival. They're killing for sport. And it's clearly when you respond to these depredations, you see they kill, tear them apart, eat the good stuff, and leave everything else and go kill another one. I mean, they'll eat one night. They killed a 700-pound heifer one night and almost ate the whole thing. So we thought, wow, we'll be all right for tomorrow night. Well, guess what? They came back the next night and killed 2 calves because that's what they do. That's what they're designed to do, and that is why I watched last week. I responded to a depredation, and we have a high point within the middle of the valley, and I ran up there because I knew the depredation was south of where I live. It was south of our ranch. They have to come back through our ranch to go back to their den. So I ran up on this lookout at 7 in the morning, right just about past daylight, because usually they're done killing and gone before the sun comes up. This morning, the kill was late because they'd killed another one, so it was the second kill they'd already killed that morning. I went up on this lookout. A friend of mine was there from down below that had a 90-millimeter spotting scope, and I have a good pair of binoculars, and I jumped out and I started looking. In 5 minutes, I picked the 3 collared wolves up. They were trotting down the side of the creek through the middle of our pasture. They trotted by 6 cows that were standing there with their calves. The next 4 cows must have looked at them wrong because 2 of the wolves grabbed one of the cows and whirled her around, and the third wolf grabbed the calf by the right in front of its hindquarters by the back. The other 2 whirled around. They tore that calf in 3 pieces in 30 seconds. It is amazing to watch the competency of, they are just killers, and it is crazy. And at that point, it's become quite obvious to me that there is no cohabitating with those three animals. These are completely habituated to killing livestock, and they are not scared of us at all.
One of the first questions we asked when the wolf entered Plumas in Sierra County is, what good can the wolf bring to our county? We don't have a problem with too many deer, too many moose, too many buffalo. They have no answer for that except
No, they said tourism. Yeah.
tourism. But yet, just a minute before, he'd said, you'll never see a wolf. So I don't understand the tourism part, but it is tearing our community apart because our community is scared. We're also told that we have to pick up our carcasses, whether it died of a wolf or if it died of any colors. But for way over a century now, those were the things that the eagles live on, the golden eagles, the bald eagles, and everything. And so what we did, we would take those carcasses and put them in a pile called a bone pile. And now we're being asked to remove those bone piles and bury those bone piles. And right now, so that food that was available for so many different wildlife species is not going to be there anymore. So we're going to change the whole dynamics of a valley that's full of wildlife.
So what about the people? From what it sounds like, you guys can't do much when these wolves are coming around. How much can you do if they come around you guys?
We're not allowed to do anything. So the Fish and Wildlife Service, their employees, and the USDA employees are allowed to aggressively haze these animals. The aggressively hazing with the drones, with rubber bullets, with bean bags, it's proved to be pointless. I mean, they are continuing to come out and kill every night. I think that we've helped stay off some kills, but we haven't stopped anything, and I don't think we will with these animals. I hope that they will delist the wolves, because if you look at the nationwide numbers, there is a huge amount of wolves, and I think that they will flourish where they belong, and they will pull back where they don't belong, and we will all move forward, but we'll see.
Are you concerned when your livestock goes back to Central Valley, right? In the winter, they will go back, right?
Well, then I become concerned for the community, because I represent the community as well on the health and safety, public safety side, and that is where we firmly believe. We saw it this spring for a short time before the cows got there, and once the cows leave, I'm afraid they're going to move right into the communities, because there's not going to be anywhere else to get any food. And the numbers are growing, their appetites are growing, and they're used to eating on a regular basis, and I think that's why they're propagating so well, because they have a high protein diet that we're providing. And once that's gone, it's going to be very interesting. The other day, one of the wolf specialists came out to our high school. We have a small FFA of Future Farmers of America. We have a little, they've got a little farm there on the high school. It's a little 10-acre farm. They raise sheep. They have a bunch of sheep. They raise sheep, and then the kids take their animals to the fair for the summer for project animals. So we keep getting told that we need to be proactive. So we asked them to come out and make recommendations on putting fladry, which they call it's a deterrent they put around the fences to keep the wolves from coming in. And the wolf specialist came out and she told the administrator of the FFA department that they were going to suffer some losses this winter. And that to me is ludicrous, to say that to kids. They're raising these sheep and they have to watch them there, and to tell them that the wolves are going to take them no matter what they do is really frustrating on my behalf. And the fact that it is right in the middle of town and is right adjacent to the high school, that by itself is admitting the fact that there could be potential significant concerns about public health and safety.
Before we continue the rest of this episode, let's take a look at some key headlines in California. In the Epoch Times newspaper this week, fake students are plaguing community colleges in California and taking the space of real students. It's not very clear why they're doing that, and there hasn't been a clear investigation on all this. California, along with Washington State and Oregon, are forming a health alliance to combat the CDC. There's actually a big divide between the CDC and the state of California, so they're trying to challenge each other, and California is trying to create its own alliance to have health guidance. A woman is facing criminal charges in California for actually casting 2 ballots in her dog's name. The company XAI is suing one of its former employees, who's a Chinese national, for theft of intellectual property. This is a trend in California and beyond, where the Chinese Communist Party is actively targeting employees of different companies, especially Chinese nationals, to steal intellectual property for them. These are stories that you could probably see only in the Epoch Times newspaper because we have a lot of insiders from China that send us information what the Chinese Communist Party is doing in America and the rest of the world. These are just a few key headlines on California. This newspaper is much broader. We have an online platform that's 24/7 covering most important things happening in this country and beyond. Make sure to check out the paper and get a subscription today. You can click on the link below and you get one for $1 a week and you can try it for a month. And when you get it, let us know what you think of the paper. Now let's go back to the rest of the episode.
Do you think they could attack the people as well?
You know, I think that if you end up between it and from what I witnessed, if anybody would have been standing in the middle of that conflict, those wolves, you mean nothing to those wolves. I mean, it was shocking to watch the agility and the expertise they had in killing that animal. And I think that if you're between them and whatever they're attacking, yes, you're going to become part of the scene.
We've tried to work with the right people, both federal and state. We're waiting for one last chance for them to do the right thing, or we're going to have to take it into our own hands. And we're willing to do that because we're going to lose every freedom we have.
We have no choice.
We have no choice, but we'll have the backing of our sheriffs. We'll have the backing of our community. So we won't be doing it alone. And it's a fight we don't want, but we can't give up anymore. We live in a beautiful place. I hope you can come see it sometime. There's not one person that comes there that's not in awe of what we have, and we don't want to lose it. Yeah, it's a business for us, but we don't do it because it's a business. We do it because we like it. We like to take care of the land and be out in the land and the wildlife. So we know that the urban people don't understand what we have. They're so disconnected now from the farmers and the ranchers, and they're told a lot of things that aren't true. My wife grew up in the city, like I told her. She grew up in Orange County, and then she moved there, and so she's seen both sides, and she's happy with what we do. We're not abusing the land. We're not, it's not about money. It's about keeping our culture alive there, and this is the biggest threat I've ever seen in my life, in my community, and it's a threat through all of Northern California. We're not alone. This has been going on in small communities throughout California, and a lot of people don't know that the wolf has moved clear down in Tulare County. There's a pack of wolves there. From that pack in Tulare County, they can disperse to any area they want. And you got to be real fearful for the park there, Yosemite. They're going to be there, and they're going to change the park forever, and it won't be on a good way. So we're trying to bring some awareness to the fact that we need to limit this now. Ranchers and farmers in our communities, we're not against the wolf, but what most people don't realize is there's good wolves and bad wolves, just like people. And when you get the bad wolves, you have to correct them one way or another, or else they'll corrupt everybody else in the region. So if we had a pack there that was a good pack, only killed to eat instead of killed to sport, we'd live with that. We're used to that. But this is so far out of the realm of reality that we're going to have to do something.
For the last 3 months, this has consumed my life. I do nothing but go to wolf kills every day, chase wolves all night to try to keep them from killing somebody else's animals the next day. It is all we do. And my employees, half the time in the morning the phone rings when we're looking at clusters, I have to send them in a different direction to go find out if there's dead ones, because if we don't get there immediately, the predators consume them, then we're fighting about compensation, because they want to blame everything but the wolf, because they don't want to admit that it is impacting us the way it is. We created the map that we showed you before we started here, and we'll provide it to you. It shows all the locations over the last several months of where the wolves have killed, and they've killed throughout the valley, and it's almost on a daily basis. And we're up over 74, 75 confirmed today, with multiple investigations still pending that we're arguing about, which could put it up well over 90 if the outcomes are as they should be. But I got 4 guys that ride horses every day and herd cows around and check cattle. And like I said, there's days on end now, half the day they spend just going around and trying to verify whether there's a dead one, where the ping locations come in that morning. It is so far out of control that it's amazing.
Now we go to the sheriff of Sierra County, Mike Fisher, to see what his perspective is of what's happening on the ground.
Can you tell us what's happening from your perspective? You're the sheriff of the Sierra County, right?
Starting in March of this year, we started having wolf attacks on the north end of the valley, which is the Plumas County side. And then as cattle continued to arrive throughout the spring into the summer, we saw the wolves shift a little further to the south and started impacting Sierra County as well.
Now, what's the response? I think the Department of Fish and Wildlife has tried to mitigate this. Can you tell us the response that you have seen? And are you guys involved locally as well?
Yes, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, we dealt with them, of course, right from the very beginning on a daily basis as these depredations continued both on the Plumas and the Sierra County side. Myself, along with one of the Board of Supervisor members from Sierra County, Paul Roen, and one of the Board of Supervisor members from Plumas County, Dwight Sarasola. The three of us got very heavily involved with what was going on in the Sierra Valley. We had some meetings with the Director of Fish and Wildlife, Chuck Bonham, and ultimately got a meeting with the California Department of Natural Resource Secretary, Wade Crowfoot, and furthered the discussions and really we're kind of laying out, the two sides of this issue. There is the health and human safety side, public safety, and then there's the economic side, which is the depredation of our cattle in the valley. And so what we were ultimately able to get for the Sierra Valley was a fish and wildlife strike force comprised of fish and game wardens and wildlife specialists. And they were authorized under the current Endangered Species Act to be able to haze the wolves out of the Sierra Valley using both ATVs, vehicles, and less lethal shotguns. Such as the ability to shoot them with rubber bullets or beanbag.
In your opinions, how are these efforts going right now for your county?
What we've seen is some very dedicated fish and wildlife staff members, our wardens and wildlife staff, that are working 24-hour shifts. They're rotating shifts. And they really are trying to do their best to haze these wolves out of the area. The problem is that these wolves are extremely habituated to cattle. They've primarily been eating cattle for the last couple of years, and so they don't want to leave the Sierra Valley. And so, despite their best efforts of chasing them out of the pastures, it just hasn't been real productive. Most recently, the USDA has brought in some drone experts, and they have been very successful in temporarily disrupting the wolves and moving them from the pasture land back out into the public land. But what we're seeing is that this is temporary during the time that the drones are flying, and the wolves are, they're very smart, and they're just simply have learned to avoid the hazing teams and, just move to a different location in the valley. Despite Fish and Wildlife's best effort, we still continued to see depredations at an alarming rate. We were seeing, we went for close to a month of seeing at least one depredation up to about 3 a day in the valley.
Mike, do you have any suggestions or any solutions? Because other states have this issue too, and some of them have been able to succeed with it. Do you have any thoughts on how we can solve this problem?
Yeah, so currently with the Bio-SAM pack, which is in the Sierra Valley, it's been proven that these animals are habituated. They have no fear of humans. Most recently, day before yesterday, we had a sighting of 4 wolves that was within probably, I'd say, 50 yards of 2 individuals walking, and was about 7:10 in the morning, and was probably 75 yards away from a school bus stop that was, going to be picking students up at about 7:30 in the morning. So this particular pack has shown that it's habituated to eating cattle, and it's not showing any fear to humans. And so, my thoughts are if true conservation is what is wanted with the gray wolf in California, along the way, certain animals are going to have to be removed from the equation once they have shown to be habituated. So, what I would like to see done is that this particular pack be removed from the Sierra Valley, and I'd like a management plan put in place for when additional wolves either fill the vacuum of this pack being gone or move into the area. Truth be told, that the first couple of years that we were having wolves come into the valley, under the management plan, there was nothing anybody could do. They couldn't harass the wolf. They couldn't haze the wolves. So these wolves associated, zero consequences with humans. What I would like to see ultimately is that, the ranchers have the ability to deal with wolves that are caught in the act of either harassing or killing livestock. And I'd like to see some local control given to the sheriffs of the county. When we deal with mountain lions, which are on the California endangered species list, there's still an avenue in which local law enforcement, the county sheriff, can deem a particular animal, an animal that's been identified to be either habituated or a public safety issue, and remove that animal from the equation. Until we get something in effect like that with the wolves, I just don't foresee any major changes occurring within the cattle industry and the health and human safety aspect of it for these wolves that are habituated.
The ranchers told us they're very frustrated, and it's got to a point where some of them are going out and dealing with this every day till 2 in the morning, and they're chasing the wolf, but then the wolves come back, and even despite they're out there every day trying this till 2 o'clock in the morning, and then at 4 o'clock in the morning, the wolves have come and got their cattle. They are getting to a point where they want to take this in their hands, and they might face serious consequences if they take action and take out these wolves. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so, currently the gray wolf in California is covered both under the Federal Endangered Species Act and it's covered under the California Endangered Species Act. So the way that the law is currently written, there's no depredation, meaning that no permits can be gotten in order to remove a particular animal. Frustration levels within the ranching community, we're talking, as of today, we're at 74 confirmed or probable wolf depredations on livestock in the Sierra Valley. Nowhere in the nation has anybody seen that much destruction and, the animal not dealt with. So my growing concern daily is that we are going to have ranchers that are going to take this into their own hands, and they are going to start removing, the gray wolf from the Sierra Valley. And with that, one, I don't condone it. We have to follow the law. Two is, the financial side. And on the Federal Endangered Species Act, it can be upwards of $100,000 fine and a year in jail. And on the California side, it's a $10,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail, misdemeanor essentially. And, I just can't understand why we have gotten to the point in which we're going to take, law-abiding citizens and force them into becoming criminals because they're trying to protect their private property and protect their income.
What about the danger to people? You mentioned there was a school bus, and at 7:30 and at 7:10 there was a sighting of 4 wolves. And what can you guys do?
Statistically speaking, it's rare for a gray wolf to attack a human being. But what we've got to look at is we've got to look at some of the markers leading up to those attacks. And those are wolves that have been habituated, that have started entering into communities, and they're no longer showing, normal patterns of natural activity. So Our deer populations are extremely low in the eastern side of Sierra County, but we have high populations of deer herds that live in and amongst our community. And so what I'm anticipating and fearful for is once the cattle leave our Sierra Valley for winter pasture, there's not going to be any more beef for them to eat. And we're going to start seeing the wolves coming into the communities going after our deer. We saw that early this spring before the cattle arrived. We had a deer that was killed about 100 yards from a community center right in a neighborhood. We saw an elk that was attacked on the doorstep of a ranch house. And then most recently, over the last couple of days, we had 4 wolves that were spotted right in one of our communities, the Sierra Brooks community. It was about 50 yards away from the 2 individuals that spotted it, and probably 75 yards away from a school bus stop. And, you know, kids were going to be picked up. The sighting came into the sheriff's office at about 7:10 in the morning, and the school bus was set to start picking up students at 7:30. And so, you know, there is kind of multiple layers to the public safety. There's the physical public safety, and that's a wolf attacking a human being. But we've got to look at it in broader. We've got to look at, you know, the mental health, the stress, the fear of, you know, what this animal has inflicted. And, you know, I've never once throughout all of my interviews I've done, my discussions with Fish and Wildlife, you know, I'm not advocating for removal of all gray wolves from California. I'm advocating for the removal of individual identified wolves that have shown that they're habituated and lack the fear of humans. My fear is if something is not done and not done immediately, like within the next, you know, week or two, you know, I truly feel that we're going to turn good law-abiding ranchers into criminals if they have to, you know, take matters into their own hand.
As you remember, we've covered an alleged scheme in Arcadia's city council where the Chinese Communist Party members were trying to get people elected. There was a recent case in San Diego, a couple of military members that got indicted because of sending information to China. And FBI is warning that every 10 hours, they have one new case of counterintelligence against China-related activities opened. But it's not just the counterintelligence attacks. Businesses in California have been impacted significantly. Billions of dollars have been lost because of IP theft. That's why we've decided to inform Californians in depth about what's going on. And we are inviting Joshua Phillip, who's an award-winning journalist from Epoch Times, who has been investigating the Chinese Communist Party's activities across the US for the last 2 decades, to come on a live event in our studio in Irvine and also in San Diego.
I had a lot of people threatening to kill me. I realized that if I don't cover it, nobody else was. One of the greatest threats our country faces would have gone unreported. I decided, yeah, I'm willing to die for this. And if they kill me, it'll make it better known.
So we're hosting an event with Joshua on September 24th at 11:30 in San Diego. It's going to be a lunch. We have a link below, you can RSVP. We're also going to have another event in Orange County and Irvine in our studio on September 25th on Thursday at 5:30. And he will also do Q&A, so you can ask him a lot of questions about what he has seen. Most of the people that attended our last event were surprised by the stories about how the Chinese Communist Party is working here. We would love to see you here at these events. Now let's go back to the interview. So some states have actually done this where they have like the really bad ones, they move them out.
Yes.
Have you guys looked into that?
We have been begging for that, and now we're demanding that because we have evolved to the point where we have to demand that. One of upper management came out and spent 2 days there. So they rotate through. We get new guys every 2 or 3 days. We get new people. You know, at the first, it was a good opportunity for their employees to get some overtime. So there was a lot of volunteers coming up, serving their 8-hour shifts, 2 or 3 days, staying in a hotel, and then going home. Now they are voluntold because everybody's sick of coming up there. I mean, you know, I have to applaud the people that are on the ground. They want to do the right thing. They want to help us. They're not provided any tools, and all they do is come up there and drive around, and they're disgusted because they see every day we go collect. They come with us, and they go verify the dead ones every day, and it's been a real morale buster for them as well. I mean, now, I mean, they just told me last night, I'm not here because I want to be here. I'm here because I'm told I have to be here, and that's just how it's going. Because at first they were up there thinking they could help. If you know most fish and game officers, they're law enforcement officers, and they're doers. They want to accomplish things. They're task oriented, and they want to accomplish things. They want to do good things for the environment, for the animals, and for everything. And
So what's the solution? So this is a national issue, right? The endangered species. What are the options you guys have?
Well, they strayed from what they believe. In federal documents, it says the one thing that's the worst thing to do is let wolves become friendly with man, because it's the worst thing for the wolf and it's the worst thing for man. All we've asked for in our area was get rid of these bad wolves. It's not going to put a drop in the bucket in the wolf population if you take out 3 or 4 of these wolves. And if they'd have done it when we told them to do it, and when they knew to do it, we'd have saved a lot of livestock. We just saved probably $3 million of state money that we don't have. And they would have saved their reputation if they would have just been honest with us from the very beginning and worked with us. We've tried really hard and to do the right thing.
Is it out of the pack that's in your area, is it only a few that are really bad, that are doing the attacks?
Yeah, it started in the spring, and there was only 3 or 4 doing it. So
3 of them are attributed to 95% of the deaths. The problem is now they have offspring.
So the other
offspring
ones
are traveling with them, so they're habituating them as well. And so then it just, it self-propagates, and now, it'll just get worse and worse. And I can't believe that our community has not lashed out yet. I mean, they support us to the extent, to their demise now, because it's become so ludicrous that we probably should have looked the other way a long time ago. But, we were willing to try to do the right thing, and that's what I mean. We've been way too tolerant of the baloney. I mean, we've gotten fed so much baloney that it's amazing. As the counties, as the people, as the producers, it's always a little more. Just, you got to do a little bit more. You got to do a little bit more. And we've done it all. We've jumped through every hoop they've given us. And we're at the point now where we can't jump anymore. We have to do something. There has to be some resolution.
And I hate to say that, but we can't live this way any longer. The stress level of ranchers and the people in our community is to a point that we're going to have a heart attack. We're going to have some strokes. This is a killer walking around your backyard every night. And so we wake up in the morning wondering what we're going to find. Every day, I can relate it to the COVID, how it was with COVID when you didn't know what was going to happen. It's just this chaotic feeling, and that's what our valley is living in right now with these predators. So we're asking them to do what they need to do before we have to do it ourselves. But we want to put them on notice that this can't continue. And there's some good guys trying really hard. This ESA law is really tough. We've been to the top, and we hope we've got a guy that's going to help us now. At least we're counting on it so that we don't have to do something. But there's things we can do without killing the wolf that's going to cause a major uprising and get the attention I think we deserve. And we're not just doing it for us. We know a lot of people are watching us, but we'll do it for the whole state of California that's going to be suffering from what we're going through now is going to be going on in the whole state of California within the next 20 years. So hopefully they will come up with the right numbers and say we can move to a new phase in the wolf plan, and they will start removing some of the habitual killers. And that's all we're asking for. We're not asking to get rid of all the wolves. We're just asking to get rid of the ones that are the real troublemakers, like any society would do, whether it's man or people or anything else. Get rid of the bad ones, and we'll learn to, I don't know if we'll ever learn to live with them, but we'll learn to tolerate them as much as we can. So there's not much we can do, but we do fear for our community, because the only way we're going to get any traction is if the unfortunate thing happens with a person, and we don't want that to happen. We want it to be taken care of before that, but it's going to happen. No creature like the wolf is not going to attack a human when they feel they're never going to have to pay any price to do that. So let's get this taken care of before that happens.
We would have hoped to talk to the Department of Fish and Wildlife and get one of their representatives on camera and talk to them. Unfortunately, they were not available to do that, but they provided us with a statement. The return of wolf in the Sierra Valley marks a notable step in California's wildlife recovery. However, their presence has led to a significant level of livestock depredation in the state, causing deeply felt losses for local ranchers. The California's Department of Fish and Wildlife acknowledges the severity of this loss and the profound impact it has had on affected producers. In response, California Department of Fish and Wildlife is actively working to reduce wolf livestock conflicts through its dedicated summer strike team. This team collaborates closely with partners and landowners to implement non-lethal deterrents and other proactive strategies designed to reduce further conflicts. Despite the best effort of the department and its partners, losses have still occurred. These efforts take place primarily on private property. The public is reminded not to interfere with these ongoing operations out of respect for private land rights and to ensure the safety and effectiveness of mitigation efforts. The department continues to utilize every available resource to support ranchers during this challenging time and remains committed to working toward long-term solutions that protect both California's wildlife and its ranching communities. Let us know what you think of this episode of California Insider. What do you think the ranchers should do, and what do you think the Department of Fish and Wildlife should do? You can always comment or email us. You can email us at siamak@californiainsider.com. We read all of your emails and comments. Make sure to consider everybody when you write those comments because we want to bring people together so together we can solve these problems California is facing. I'm Siamak Karami. This is California Insider. We'll see you next time.